35 miles per hour, roughly 50 kilometers per hour. That quickly with some of the outer bands of this storm, you can imagine really what's to come. Now, what's new in the past hour or so is the National Weather Service has extended the hurricane warnings up the west coast of the Florida Panhandle, or excuse me, the Florida Peninsula, and the east coast of the Florida Peninsula. So it's basically to Brevard County on the east coast, and it's basically just to the north of Tampa on the west coast. So really, none of the state will be spared from hurricane force conditions. We've been talking about the sheer size of Irma. We know it covers nearly 70,000 square miles, and the entire state of Florida alone is 65,000 square miles. So you don't need to be a mathematician to figure out what
where the hurricane is going to land. And we saw what it did in the Caribbean. And, you were just looking at these images thinking, it's difficult for me to leave my home. I don't want to displace myself, but this is going to be a big storm, and it's going to come in right in at Miami. So we would watch, we would wait, we would watch, we would hope that it would sort of veer to the right or go out to sea, and at one point it just became apparent that this was our window of opportunity to move north, to go north. So we drove north, and I arrived in Jacksonville today, a couple hours ago actually.
Yeah, and I bet it was a slow drive. It certainly appears that a lot of people have been stuck in that traffic for many hours. We've heard of drives that were meant to take 2 hours taking 8 or 9 hours and the like, but good for you for getting out. I wanted to ask you about the Botanical Gardens, though, because I was reading up on it. It's a fascinating place, a great thing that you've done there. But as I understand it, it's pretty much right on the beach. What are you thinking you might come back to?
It is right on the beach. There is really, at this point, we just have to wait and see. It's an outdoor space. It's 2.5 acres with about 100 species of palms. I mean, the palms should take the winds pretty well. That's what they were grown for. They're native plants. Part of the garden is a native garden, so a lot of the plants were meant to live in this climate. So we're hoping that the garden will sustain the storm. There's some very large trees there. There's a champion sea grape tree, and there's a ficus tree, and there's many large plants that we hope will survive, but some of the smaller ones are going to get washed away. So it's going to be a replanting.
It's been hit before, right? I mean, it has been destroyed before by a storm, hasn't it?
It has destroyed. In 1926, there was a massive hurricane that really decimated Miami Beach, and the garden clubbers went around with little seedlings and Dixie cups to refoliate Miami Beach. And that's essentially the root of Miami Beach Botanical Garden today, was those residents just walking around with little cups with seeds in them to refoliate the beach. And so that's going to happen again. It's going to be a replanting, I'm sure.
And how do you feel about that? I mean, you've put your heart and soul in this place. A lot of people have, and we talk a lot about homes, obviously, and lives are paramount. But you must have an emotional attachment to the gardens.
Yes, of course. And it was difficult to actually leave Miami Beach and feel like I wasn't abandoning my garden, my space, my home. But, I have to let the storm pass through, as they say. And it'll be interesting to see what I go back to.
Yeah, Mary Kissinger, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. Good for you for getting out, and good luck with the gardens. Hopefully you've got something to work with when you go back. I really appreciate it. Think about that. 95% of buildings were damaged in some way or other when the hurricane hit as a Category 5 on Wednesday. At least one person died. Now we've got some CNN drone video that shows almost every house ripped open or completely destroyed, damage caused right across that area. Just have a look at that. Our team in Barbuda says it is pure destruction and desolation. Residents are in shock. Listen to how some of them survived.
I witnessed Hurricane Louis, but it was never like this. This one is the worst and the most devastated, done more damage to Barbuda than any other storm that we in our lifetime have experienced.
My mom cried and my brother waked me up. I was frightened. I didn't know this was going to happen to me.
Me and my family of 7, including an infant of 2 months, had to shelter in a closet. Before the hurricane force winds began, the roof had already gone from our premises and we had to go for shelter. But my main concern right now is how we're going to survive after this, meaning that every house, every infrastructure, every utility that is there is completely damaged and gone.
And Barbuda not safe yet either. Hurricane Jose, yes, another one expected to hit there on Saturday as a Category 4 storm. Officials trying to evacuate anyone left. Now, Michael Joseph.
We've gotten the immediate needs covered, primarily because we've evacuated the entire island of Barbuda. So there's been this outpouring of support from the locals in Antigua and Barbuda. I mean, we've been having food coming in left, right, and center. We've had clothing, we've had baby supplies, we've had toiletries. So the immediate needs are being attended to. I think most importantly, what the Barbudans need right now is Barbuda as they know it, and that's shelter, that's getting back their livelihood, going back to what they know. Because as it stands now, they're pretty much in Antigua and Barbuda, not doing anything that they would normally do in Barbuda.
Tell me a little bit more. Try to give. We see the pictures, but try to give me a sense of what is left there in Barbuda. What is there in terms of infrastructure, in terms of businesses?
There is nothing left in Barbuda. It's not 95% damage, I think the better word is 95% destroyed. There's no damage. I mean, damage is when you can repair something. This is desolation. We're talking about building everything back from basics. It's about Barbuda being pushed back into primitive days. You've got to run the entire electric grid. You've got to replant plumbing lines. You can get water. You've got to rebuild schools, churches, homes. You've got to give fishermen boats. It's just an entire country you're going to have to build again. So everything that would have been accomplished over the many, many years leading to 2017, it's all back to square one with Barbuda.
It just defies belief when you put it that way. Tell us a bit about the spirit of the people there. I mean, the willingness to rebuild, a determination. Are you already detecting that?
Yes, I mean, definitely. I mean, Barbudans are very proud people. This is what they know. That's their heritage. This is something that they'll fight for. So to wake up one day, and have to come to the realization that you're going to have to move everybody from country, and you're going to have to go into another country and pretty much just be there with a new life. So Barbudans themselves, they're ready, they're waiting, they're already trying to figure out how they're going to rebuild, when they're going to be rebuilt. As a matter of fact, some of them, even though it's 95% of the buildings are destroyed, many of them still want to live in whatever is left. I mean, that's just how much pride they have and that's how much love they have in Barbuda.
It's a remarkable spirit. I have to mention, though, Hurricane Jose. I mean, after dealing with something like this, the devastation, what is it like to know that another one is on the way?
I think that's why the government made the decision to evacuate the entire island, because we considered what happened after Hurricane Irma to be a very, very fortunate and miraculous event. The fact that you have 95% of an entire country destroyed overnight and only had one fatality, so the government wasn't going to take any risk again. They ordered everybody evacuated so that we can ensure safety and security, because there isn't absolutely any for another Category 4 hurricane. If this was to run over Barbuda, which it's going to, I can guarantee you the number of fatalities would have significantly jumped from 1 to possibly 50, even 100 in a single night.
That's a very good point. I guess, you know, if you and I were to talk a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, what do you think, or what do you hope Barbuda will look like?
A year from now, I'd tell you that we've probably just finished with the electric system. We've, you know, probably only rebuilt 20% of the infrastructure that's needed a year from now, if so much. And this is being hopeful. This is me saying this based on the fact that they, you know, we are able to get huge international donations. If we're able to get, you know, influx of all the materials we need, if within the next 3 months we get everything here, then in the next 2 years, if we were to speak, I'll tell you Barbuda is 25% of where it was before, the night before Hurricane Irma.
You know, you talked earlier, Michael, about the spirit of people, the determination to rebuild, but give me a sense of the emotions that people must have been going through. I just can't get over looking at the aerial pictures and the totality of the damage and how much heartbreak that must have brought to the people who live there, for whom this is home.
I mean, it was, I can imagine it was devastating for Barbudans, but it was even more devastating for Antiguans as well, because we were in complete communication with Barbuda up until 10:30 the night, and communication just went. So there was no warning. No one knew what was happening in Barbuda until the Prime Minister flew over, maybe about 16 hours later, and then he reported back to Antigua the pictures and the report of 95% destruction. The entire country went into silence in disbelief that something so tragic could happen in less than 16 hours.
Absolutely extraordinary. Michael Joseph with the Red Cross St. John's, Antigua, Barbuda, thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing the feelings of the people there and the optimism, the spirit, the determination to rebuild. Extraordinary stuff. Thank you very much, Michael Joseph.
You're welcome.
All right. Unbelievable, isn't it, when you look at that? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Hurricane Irma dropping torrential rain all over Cuba. We'll show you how this monster storm is getting
between about 5
even
and maybe
stronger.
8 o'clock in the
back.
evening. You'll see that slowly rise, but then it will dramatically pick up. And by tomorrow evening, when I am talking to you tomorrow evening, we're looking at a hurricane just about ready to make landfall. Within about 5 or 6 hours, it has slowed down just a little bit. So as it gets closer to land, we might see those, I say the word perturbations, but these little iterations of the storm, maybe slowing down, maybe wiggling a little bit, maybe the eye changing form, maybe the wind speed changing. There are all kinds of things that can happen when it starts to interact with land. But the water temperatures here, what drives everybody to these beautiful Florida beaches, the water temperatures here have been at near record-setting levels. They're in the upper 80s. It's like a bathtub. That's what hurricanes love. They love lovely bath water temperature and nothing in the atmosphere to shear it off, move it in another direction. This is the perfect ingredients that have come together for Irene to just wreak havoc.
Irma.
From one end, Irma, from one end of Florida all the way to the other.
Okay, Karen, let me ask you. So see where it is right there where you have it right now. I know it's not exact, but about what time is that when that eye is right there? And what are we looking at Sunday for that? Where is that?
This says Sunday p.m., but you have to remember, once this makes landfall, it may slow down, but this could be hours that we expect these winds between the 75 and 100 plus mile per hour winds just rake across Key Largo, Miami, West Palm, Naples, Marco Island, Fort Myers, and then a little bit later around Tampa, St. Pete, over towards Fort Pierce. But this is going to be a steady progression going from Saturday evening, I think, early or mid-evening, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And then this is the forecast model for Sunday, 8 p.m. But this is the core.
Right.
We try not to get singularly focused on that because it can have little wobbles. It can jog a little bit, and I think that's exactly what this is going to do because it is interfering with land. And that clearly demonstrates, here we are at Monday, 2 a.m. All right, this may not be a good depiction. The further out we go, the little wonkier the computer models become. But you can see the entire state of Florida is engulfed by either tropical storm force winds. Then there's going to be the storm surge. I didn't even mention that, but along some of these southeastern coasts for Irma, there could be a storm surge of 5 to 10 feet possible. What does that mean? If you took water and pushed it rapidly towards a wall, you would see just how it would inundate and just the force of that. That's what we're looking at. Sometimes storm surge gets a little confusing, but all of this is low-lying territory. I know how a lot of places are built with concrete buildings, and you think, my building is going to withstand that.
We were
Or
just
I'm in
talking
a
about that.
high-rise.
Right.
Yes, I'm in a high-rise.
Destruction left by Hurricane Irma. The Dutch Navy tweeted that the island had been hit with huge damage and more could be on the way. We've been talking about Hurricane Jose, now a Category 4 storm, and it could pass close to St. Martin in the next 24 hours. A double hit. Extraordinary stuff. Now, meanwhile, Irma has strengthened back into a Category 5 and is set to slam the U.S. state of Florida. Hurricane Irma now battering parts of Cuba as we speak, and it has regained the wind speeds that make it that Category 5 storm. Even before it made landfall, Irma was bringing torrential rain to the country. Our Patrick Oppman has more from the Cuban coast.
So here on the northern central coast of Cuba, we continue to feel these feeder bands coming in, these squalls that bring in a lot of rain and wind. This one is not that strong. Earlier tonight, though, I was nearly blown over. A storm came in, and really out of nowhere, I didn't even have time to put my rain jacket on. It was incredibly forceful. I've covered plenty of hurricanes, and yet nothing like this has ever happened to me, where I just could not get my jacket on. Out of nowhere, rain came in that was pretty much blinding, and it knocked out that squall, actually knocked out power in the town of Caybarien, where I am in Cuba, where we've seen a lot of evacuations over the last day or two. So conditions are going to continue to deteriorate here as we get into Saturday, as the storm moves in closer to Cuba before heading to Florida. People say they are prepared here, but of course, until the storm actually hits, we won't know how prepared Cuba is. But people at this point really don't have any other option. If they haven't fled, if they haven't evacuated, then they need to stay put because the storm is coming. Patrick Oppman, CNN, Caybarien, Cuba.
That was Patrick Oppman there for us in Cuba, really, who felt some of the brunt of Hurricane Irma. As we've been hearing from our weather meteorologist Karen McGuinness, who's saying that really Cuba is feeling the brunt of Hurricane Irma, but also, the outer part of Hurricane Irma is being felt in the Bahamas. Let's go now to Stefano Pozzebon. He joins us now from Nassau. And Stefano, what can you see? What can you hear? Give us a sense of what is happening on the ground where you are.
Well, what is happening right now is that we are experiencing torrential rainfall that Irma has brought to so many other parts of the Caribbean, and that Nassau were spared there until about half an hour ago, when we have started to see all the rainfall. Of course, rainfall that brings further concern for the people of the Bahamas, given how flat and tiny this little archipelago is. If we are expecting up to 12 inches of rainfall and about up to 20 feet of sea rising and sea level rising, this could bring concern for the people, especially in the southernmost islands of the Bahamas, which are the ones that are really feeling the burden of Irma's passage, Asa.
Yeah, and of course you've been talking about the rainfall and the concerns over wind. One of my friends been talking about how powerful those winds have been in the Bahamas. What is the government doing? I mean, in terms of evacuation, how was their grand plan? How did that work out? Because when we think about the storm surges that we keep on hearing and how high these will be, how is that panned out for those on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. The government had prepared an evacuation plan for 6 of the southernmost island of the archipelago that were evacuated between Wednesday and Thursday in what was the biggest evacuation operation that the Bahamian Emergency Management Agency had brought to date. And yesterday we were able to visit one of the shelters here in Nassau where those people, the displaced people from the southernmost island were brought to. They were welcomed into one of these shelters with makeshift and camp beds. And we spoke with a few of them. They were pleased with the actions of the government. They thought that the government had organized a successful evacuation plan, but of course a lot of concern for them for what they could find once probably next week they will make their way back to their homes, what they could find there if Irma has swept over their island, Isa.
Stefano Pozzebon, do keep us updated on the situation on the ground, and of course keep safe for us. We'll be in touch with you in the next hour or so. You know, here in Miami we have seen rain. It's been really raining quite heavily in the last hour or so. Winds have also begun to pick up, and the water here to my right, it's gone much nastier and much more ferocious. Derek Van Dam is monitoring the situation on the ground. He joins us now from Miami Beach. And Derek, you know, we've had more than some 5.6 million people in Florida being ordered to evacuate. I mean, that is a staggering amount. That is a quarter of the population. And from what I've been seeing since I've been here, the majority of people have been heeding those warnings.
Yeah, without a doubt. And proof is in the shot right behind me, Issa. This is Ocean Drive. Granted, it's 2 o'clock in the morning local time here, but this city street would normally be packed with cars, people leaving bars and restaurants. It's a Friday night. It's the height of summer, or more towards the tail end of summer, but rather a very popular time for visitors within this area. And really the only cars that we've seen, a few people that have decided to stick out the storm, other media personalities here, and also plenty of cops patrolling the area as well. Now, a lot of incredible things that have happened here. We've already felt the first kind of feeder bands that have started to filter into the Miami-Dade County region, and it was incredible how quickly the weather changed. The winds started to gust 35, 40 miles per hour, over 50 kilometers per hour, and the temperature dropped by nearly 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It was incredible just to feel that sudden change in the temperature and the wind. That is just a sign of things to come. Of course, we've got the coastal storm surge that we need to pay very close attention to. Not only the East Coast, we've been talking about that a lot, but also the West Coast. The National Weather Service has extended both hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings from Brevard County on the East Coast all the way to just north of Tampa on the